So for many, many months, every time I would drive in or out of my driveway, I would go into guilt because my gutters would look at me and go, hello, because they were just jammed with leaves and limbs and debris from months and months and months of whatnot. And I always had an excuse. And so Friday was just probably the most exquisite day. There was nothing on my calendar. And as I sat in reverie of that on my sun porch, I could hear the gutters go, hello. And I said, perfect opportunity. And I took the ladder out and I crawled up and I very systematically, inch by inch, began to scoop out with my hand things from, 2014. Who knows? It was just there. Blew everything off and had this amazing epiphany experience and awareness. And that was while sitting up there, I paused and I would look. And because it was such a spectacular day, I could look out and I could see the neighborhood from a vantage point that I had never seen before. I could see into people's backyards and see dogs and the UPS truck and all the activity going on from this amazing sort of lofty idealism that was blended with clouds and blended with nature. And I thought, what a great place to meditate. So I propped my back up against the chimney chute. The curve and the roof was just enough so I could sit my butt and sit there and not slide off. And I went into the most exquisite calm and peace. I could have stayed up there forever. I fancied myself just leaving the ladder forever and coming up here every day. I'm sure in January that would get really old in the cold. But in that state of cleaning the gutters out, it was as if some more mental cleaning happened as well. And this overwhelming thought occurred to me. And it was that the source of our pain, what you and I attribute to what isn't working, our disconnectedness, the source of our pain is simply this: a distrust of the divine. Our trust in the divine is conditioned. Can you imagine if it wasn't? And that's a very simple yet powerful hypothesis to toss to you. Can you imagine what your life would look like, be like right now, if you did not have conditioned trust with the divine? There would be no second guessing. There would be no hyper self-criticism. There would be no paralyzing doubt. There would be just this beautiful equanimity that would float through us, this energy of poise and calm and peace, because we would know that wherever I am, wherever I go, whatever I attempt, whatever I do, whatever I set forth, whatever intention is launched, is cradled in the respectful, divine energy and flow of that which is God. No doubts whatsoever. So our pain, then, this thing that we keep trying to medicate, this thing that we keep trying to pacify through external means, simply has its roots in the fact that we distrust the divine. And so up there in that space, I looked and I thought, how do we then move into a willingness? Not a once-a-year willingness like on a New Year's Day where we make resolutions, but a consistent willingness to continue to pivot, to course correct back to the understanding that there is only one power. I'm trying to fragment that power. I'm trying to actually micromanage that power. But there's only one power, this universal intelligence, which is beautifully weaving synchronistically the entire ecosystem of our planet, of life, of the cosmos, everything, including me. But I distrust it. And the insanity of that just hit me like a ton of bricks as I sat there. Why in the world would I distrust something that has been eternally in place and championing me since I took my first breath? I was reflecting on the 13 years of going to Cambodia. And as I mentioned several weeks ago, this upcoming trip in January is going to be my last for a while, because I'm going to start to diversify that program and model in other places. But so often in Cambodia, in the beginning, it was all about sustainability. It was all about taking and going towards the root of the need, which was always fresh water. Because when you got to go into the villages, you saw firsthand that many of these families and many of these collectives would simply drink out of a mud hole. And through trial and error, or persistence or tenacity, what came to be developed was a little PVC piping, a generator, an auger, some manpower, and sweat equity into this process where you would get into the mud hole, realizing that if there's water here, then there's got to be more water below that would be fresh. It just takes some digging. Just like Joy said for the celebration of Rosh Hashanah tonight, it's that opportunity to dig deep in providing personal, mental, emotional, and spiritual reconciliation inside of us. It's like in that mud hole, we knew that if we dug deep and created a system, that we could begin to bring up the fresh water that was underneath. And I remember we would do this with great regularity, and something that would be so transformative for me was in a 24-hour period, a family who had been drinking out of a mud hole would suddenly have a pump with fresh water. And you could just look at them going, because all along it was there. And the greatest memory of that was in a particular village that was populated by government soldiers. And don't let that kid you, they were paid nothing. And so they lived in dire circumstances. And there was a man in that village who had been a soldier who had AIDS. And his wife and his children had left him. They had gone off to the homeland where her mother was. And the rest of the people in the village had ostracized him because they were operating out of ignorance. And he lived in just these deplorable conditions. And we were putting a well in his little plot of land. And we were well aware of the fact that just that one well was not going to be enough. And so we came back the next day and we cleaned his property. And as the well was being brought to life through the digging, and the cement was being laid and the pump was being put into place, some of us had the idea that let's take this and let's plant a garden near his well now that he has fresh water. And all of a sudden, because of the activity of us doing this, the rest of the villagers saw us. They saw that we weren't afraid of him. They saw that we were engaged with him. And they started slowly trickling in one by one and helping to dig and plant the seeds. And as we were doing this, this man said in his native language, which is Khmer, he said, "Heaven has landed. Heaven has landed." And he didn't live much longer after that. But that realization that heaven had landed was this opportunity for all of us to see that there's something to the idea of digging deep. You see, because we have mud holes. You and I are drinking from mud holes. We're eating out of mud holes. We're bathing in mud holes when we are not aware of the fact that we have a distrust of the divine. Which means that we're only going so far. We're only operating in this particular surface construct because for whatever reason we're afraid to dig deeper. We're afraid to expose our vulnerabilities. We're afraid to go into the darkened recesses of our mind, which have convinced us that there's filled with boogeymen and horrors and things that are going to destroy our lives. And you know what? It is going to destroy. But what is it going to destroy? The illusion, if you're willing to dig deep. But so often we are living life in a mud hole. It's not just people in third world countries. Metaphorically, we have not taken the opportunity to dig deep. And so when we do, we begin to get a taste of what is called the depths of mind. The depths of mind. Now, mind is consciousness. Who in the world can begin to measure the depths of consciousness? And yet, that's what is contained within us. That is what is calling out for you and I to dig past, stopping from here, which is intellectualizing and just breathing long enough to sustain it, but none of these truths really drop down into here, where all of a sudden we begin to realize that this grudge that I'm holding, this fear that I'm holding, this disdain, this judgment that I'm holding within us is keeping me here in this muddied region of the intellect, where love and life is the portal of everything that is evolutionary. And so we're beckoned, we're called, we're taught by every wise sage, by every spiritual teacher, by every master who has come before us, that we must begin to dive deep. We must begin to explore the depths of mind. Even our founder, Ernest Holmes, said it's actually impossible to plumb the depths of the individual mind, because the individual mind is really not individual, but individualized. What does that mean? That means that the drop in the ocean isn't really just a singular drop in the ocean, but it is an individualized expression of the entire ocean in the one drop. You are the individualization of mind to the degree of you're willing to dig. That means you are the individualization of power. You are the individualization of wholeness. You are the individualization of life, of love, of expansion, of respect. You are individualization of all of these things to the degree that you dive deep, that you clear the gutters, that you sit, and you begin to understand that the mud hole is beckoning me. But here's our relationship with the mud hole. Ooh. Somehow we think that's chivalrous, you know. It's like that metaphoric taking the cape off, and so we tip over. A real knight would have pushed that woman right into the mud hole and say, "Find yourself," and then jumped in right with her, right? Find yourself. But we are so taught and practiced to bypass all of that which is inconvenient. The depths of mind. It's impossible to plumb the depths of the individual mind, because the individual mind is really not individual, but individualized. And he says, behind the individual is, behind this surface, behind the top of the mud, behind that, underneath that, is the universal, is the unlimited. In this concept alone lies the possibility of eternal and endless expansion. Everyone is universal on this particular subjective side of life, this internal knowing of life. Every one of us is a part of that. He goes, the riddle is solved. And we then all use this creative power of mind every single time that we use our own mind consciously. So we bring God to life. We bring the universe to life when we're willing to explore the depths of mind. But what seduces us and what pulls us is the stuff. I was thinking about Gilda Radner this week, and I wrote that in the newsletter. She was famous for saying it's always something. It's always, if it's not one thing, it's another, right? It's always something. And that was offered comedically as a take on the fact that life seems to bombard us with one thing after another. Like we're spinning plates all the time, trying to catch up, trying to keep up. But the something, if you reframed it, it's always something, is also invitational. There's always something that is inviting you back to dive deeper. Because that which is the integrity of who you are at your very core cannot help but keep inviting you back. Cannot keep but whispering into your ear to come home. Cannot help but extend that invitation to you time and time again to step into the mud hole and to sink deeper into the recesses of the infinite nature of God. To not run away from that which you fear, but to embrace that which is the all. That is the depths of mind. Spirituality is not learned by flight from the world, or by running away from things, or by turning solitary and going apart from the world. Rather, we must learn an inner solitude, wherever or with whomsoever we may be. We must learn to penetrate things in order to find that God. And that was by Meister Eckhart. We must be able to penetrate those things that we are in resistance of in order to lift the veil, to pierce the veil of illusion, to be able to understand the magnitude of why God is there. What would jumpstart that? What would make that consistent for you and I? What would have us in this moment now, got it? Never again will I pause or live in this sense of hesitation. Never again will I distrust that which is source. Never again. I think one of the things would, if we came to term with death. If you remember several years ago, we all read, if you were in the summer study book club, The Untethered Soul by Michael Singer. Fabulous book if you haven't read it. And he says, what happens when you're told that death is around the corner? So first of all, let me look at all of you. Death is around the corner. Because time is an illusion, right? Death is around the corner. You change. But I loved what he said. He goes, you change. Life doesn't change. But you and I change. Because why? Because suddenly we've been brought to our senses, the heightened senses, the full range of senses that teaches us what is of value, what is a priority. This service, this love, this communication, this cleaning up, this diving deep. This fearlessness, which brings us then into that place of complete openness and trust of the divine. What happens when you're told that death is around the corner? You change. Life doesn't change. The true seeker commits to live like that every moment and lets nothing stop them. Now, we all have a little shame around that, right? The true seeker does this, and we're all sitting there going, I guess I must not be a true seeker. What does it mean to be a true seeker? None of us 100% of the time are true seekers. But oh, what glorious and how beautiful it is when the margin of error starts to move more towards the margin of willingness. And that's all that it takes. That if this day, today, Sunday, I'm a little bit more willing than I was yesterday. I'm a whole lot more willing this year than I was last year. I'm a whole lot more accountable now for my connection and my trust to the divine than I was when I was so upset and in my dark night of the soul. And so I began to look at, how am I migrating? How am I becoming and taking ownership of the true seeker? He says the true seeker commits to live like that every moment and lets nothing stop them. Why would anything stop you? And he ends with, you're just going to die anyway. Just accept that for a moment. I don't know anybody else who's getting out, unless maybe they're ascended and living in a cave in the Himalayas. So why would anything stop you? Why would any of this resistance be continued? He says, how precious would life be if there was no such thing as death? Because some of us are trying to outrun it, or imagine that it's not there. How precious would life be if there was no such thing as death? His conclusion, you would waste every second of it because you'd figured you'd always have it. He said sometimes scarcity, or the appearance of scarcity, makes things precious. It is scarcity that makes a simple rock become a true gem. So death actually gives meaning to life. And there again is polarity. The opposite of that. If we know that this is impermanent, if we know that this existence is transient, at what point do we have this epiphany, this wake-up call, this rooftop conscious awareness where we look at everything and we go, I get it. I see the system. I see the synchronicity. I see the possibility. Why in the world am I spending so much energy in this defensiveness? Why am I giving lip service? And I'm saying, I want love in my life. I want abundant prosperity. I want my creativity to be respected. I want all of that which is God to come into my life. I want to be in harmony with all. I see all people as connected and loving and harmonious. Get out of my way. I see everything that is a part of God flowing through me. But energetically, it's this. The opportunity presents itself, That's the way life is. That's the way every day is. Every day there's something on the doorstep that's filled with opportunity. And we're like, not now. I got a hair appointment. Got to get my nails did. Every day there's an opportunity to practice this virtue of love, of breaking the veil of people's pain and not projecting our own stuff and taking responsibility. And we're like, not convenient. And so this then is nothing more than crossed intentions, which simply negates everything that we're saying. It's just lip service. It doesn't mean anything. True practice is the ability for you and I, true visionary living, true evolutionary living, is being willing to get into that mud hole and to continue to dig deeper and to dig deeper and to dig deeper and to know that heaven is here. Oh my God, heaven is here. Without even realizing it, I've been postponing heaven. Without even realizing it, I've been buying into that stale, illusional idea that my good is in my future, when it's here. It's right here. And so it is always something. It is always something. But you know what that something is? It's calling right now. The bad part of that is on the broadcast, they don't hear the phone. They just hear me say something weird and then everybody erupts in laughter. There was a phone that just went on. That something is the eternal call. But it is. And so, look, why do we not trust? What are we waiting for, seriously? Do we really think that our guardedness and our mistrust is going to change anything in our global system? Do you think that any way in which we show up in the world wearing our armor is going to benefit or elevate the world stage in terms of its evolution? Or is it waiting for the very simple and the very quiet component of you and I who are doing the work in the privacy of our own interior world to then step out onto that stage and to simply say, I trust. I'm going to go here and I'm going to trust. It may not look exactly like I thought it should look or what I was expecting, but I'm going to trust. I'm going to go over here. They didn't pay me what I thought I should be paid. They didn't honor me in the way that I should be honored. So I'm going to withhold, or am I just going to give my gift, realizing that I'm paid, I'm honored in other areas in so many different times, then it doesn't necessarily have to be in this particular lane of existence. Because I trust. What would happen? What would happen if we then begin to participate in that connection of people where just because I'm giving to Scott, I'm not then waiting for Scott to give back to me. I'm just giving to Scott. Because I want to know is the energy and the activation of giving that is then going to ripple out through me, because that's the way that the universe works. And so I trust. You didn't love me, so I'm going to break up. I'm going to divorce. I'm going to end this because you didn't love me. Where does it say that someone is bound to love the other person? If I first am holding their feet to the fire and saying, you must. I don't know about you, but there's nothing more repelling than somebody in your face going, you will love me. And you, and you, and you, you're going to love me. But at the end of the day, she's still replaced in the girl group. The depths of mind that you and I haven't explored yet is awe-inspiring. And you already know this. You and I must go meet it. We must begin to dig. We can't expect anybody else to dig for us. That is our opportunity. And so if you will close your eyes with me this morning and just take a deep breath. I want you to think about your distrust of the divine. Let's just admit it. It's there. As we look at those compartmentalized aspects where we are pushing away, where we are resisting, we have the opportunity in this moment now to jump into the mud hole of that resistance and to say, I trust. Oh my God, I'm jumping into the mud hole. I trust. Oh my God, I'm digging deeper and it's so uncomfortable. I trust. Oh my God. I'm exploring and expressing and honoring my feelings and it's uncomfortable. Oh my God. I'm having to let people off of the hook and it's uncomfortable. And then our mantra simply becomes, I trust. Say that with me. I trust. What is it that you trust? What is it up until now that you have pushed away? What is it that you are saying, I trust? And that becomes our homework. And so today, in this beautiful, gorgeous, beautiful, exquisite, sun-filled, energized day, we take a moment to pause and to reflect and to look at the synchronicity and the harmony of life all around us. And somehow we carve out just 5 minutes of time alone, and we go and we sit And we look at all of this and we simply say, I trust. I trust. I trust in the divine. I trust the power and the intelligence that hung the moon and the stars to fix my financial problem, to guide me, to give me clarity and wisdom about what I'm supposed to do. I trust. And in that trustful nature, I allow myself to dig and to dive and to collapse and to fall and to sink into a greater awareness of the magnitude of Source. And I just say thank you. I trust. I trust. Thank you. I trust. Thank you. I trust. Thank you. And for life itself, if you will honor me by closing this prayer and say, and so it is. Hi, I'm David Ault, and I simply want to say thanks. Thanks for taking the time to watch our broadcast here at Spiritual Living Center of Atlanta. We have a vision, and that vision is to reawaken all to their spiritual magnificence. And one of the ways that we are able to do that is through this very medium of broadcasting. So if you got anything out of this, if you felt in any way inspired, or if something spoke to you directly, then I extend an invitation to you to become a part of our family by donating. And there are many ways in order for you to be able to do that. One is to simply go to our website at slca.com, and there you will find all different kinds of prompts that will help you support what it is that we are doing here in Atlanta. One way is to become a pledger. That means that you decide on a monthly basis that you are going to help us with this vision. Another way is to donate through our management system called Fellowship One, another through PayPal, and another even easier way is on your cell phone. You can do what's called text to tithe, and that number is 404-796-7030. Again, thank you so much for your support, and I invite you to come back weekly to see what it is that we're up to. Blessings.